So up next, we have the amazing Jackie Barkhouse. You may remember she was the organizer of the first Women's March last year that was highly successful, and that is the celebration that we are having our first anniversary for. She has been working to make life better for Nova Scotians her whole adult life. As a labor activist, as a Halifax City Councillor, and as an organizer of events in Nova Scotia, including last year's Women's March, as I mentioned, picking up the lessons we have learned from Leanne and so many others, Jackie will be calling for legislation to give us our voices back and stop abusers from buying our silence with non-disclosure agreements and forced arbitration. Jackie Barkhouse!
Thank you so much for coming out today. I cannot tell you how much I admire the courage that Leanne Tessier has demonstrated over the last 12 years. Her example reminds us of just how deeply entrenched the forces are that we are seeking to change. As Leanne has just reminded us, people fighting against sexual and gender harassment have too often found themselves fighting alone. Fighting alone against well-funded, full-lawyered teams who are willing to destroy a person's reputation. If that's what it takes to protect themselves. That's why I could not be more excited about Leanne's announcement of Equity Watch. If there's one thing we've learned since we were here a year ago, we need to find ways to provide much more community and support for people to come forward to report abuse. But there is more that we can do, and quickly. For starters, I'm calling on HRM City Council and on our provincial MLAs to eliminate some of the most powerful weapons in the hands of abusers, their ability to use the law to gag people who have been abused. As we have heard in many of the high-profile cases over the last year, abusers have used legal means to gag women from speaking out. But just because something is legal does not mean it is moral. Slavery was legal, it was immoral, struggle ended slavery. Child labor was legal, it was immoral, struggle ended child labor. Denying women the right to vote was legal. It was immoral. Struggle won women their vote. Gagging victims of abuse is legal. It is immoral. And we need to put an end to it immediately. This gagging takes several forms. There are non-disclosure agreements, or NDAs, which prohibit a victim from discussing any aspect of a case in exchange for a financial settlement. Or workers are forced, as a condition of employment, to submit complaints about sexual harassment to binding arbitration where settlements can gag workers from talking about their cases. Churches, politicians, sports coaches, and corporations have been using these legal tools for decades to shut people up. What these abusers buy with their NDAs and their arbitration is silence. Silence. Silence that protects the abusers and their employers. It's time that our elected representatives stop allowing abusers to buy silence. with these immoral non-disclosure agreements and forced arbitrations. I'm calling on legislators at every level in Nova Scotia to prevent abusers from gagging their victims with non-disclosure agreements and forced arbitration. Such legislation can protect the privacy of victims while forcing the public exposure of the abusers. Let's stop the harassment and the abuse. Believe the victims. End the toxic culture of protection by passing strong laws that bring about change. So rings the bell. And while our legislators are at it, they should fund a state-of-the-art program for employers to use to combat sexism in all of its forms in our workplaces. And by state-of-the-art, I don't mean a token couple of hours here and there. We know that rooting out sexism is going to be a tough job. Let's make a commitment across the province to a multi-year program to make Nova Scotia a national leader in this difficult fight. I look forward to working with everyone here today and with people of goodwill across our wonderful province to give a voice to those that are abused and to bring the silence to an end.